Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hi, welcome back, everybody. Learning so much every time we get together with this gentleman and the people that he's aligned with. And the common denominator here is how the arts heal. I want to say that again. The arts heal. What do I mean by the arts? Could be anything that we enjoy. Could be music, poetry, could be dance. And it heals all different types of people. Those going through, maybe emotional challenges, mental challenges, those who are incarcerated. It all begins with a wonderful organization called Baltic Street Into Action. And he's the man behind that. Peter Jampel joins us once again here on our program. Peter, welcome back. How are you?
Good, Steve. Nice to be with you.
Yeah, we're going to learn a lot today about what I understand to be the peer movement of the arts. And let's get right into it. Who do we have with us today?
Well, we have two guests. First, I'd like to introduce Gayle Bluebir. Gayle is a poet, a writer, and she's also a registered nurse who's a pioneer in the peer arts movement. And Gayle is going to be talking about her history in the early days of the use of the arts in recovery. And my other guest is Meghan Caughey. And Meghan is an artist. She's also a musician, as many people are multifaceted in their use of the arts in their own lives and recovery. And Meghan is an assistant clinical professor in the psychiatry department at the University of Health and Science in Oregon. So welcome to both of you. So glad you were able to join us.
Thank you, Peter.
Nice to meet you both.
Yes. Gayle, let me start with you. You go back to the very beginnings of a kind of formal appreciation and organization of how the arts became a force for health and recovery. And can you kind of take us back to the early days in the 70s when this was still not only not understood, but not even recognized? And how did you find it? And what was it like in those early days?
Well, I was more like just there. I was in California when the group of ex-patients found each other, having been institutionalized for large periods of time, involuntarily exposed and treated abusively with a number of a variety of different quote treatments, and that included restraint and seclusion, shock treatment, just and unpaid labor in the institutions. Mm-hmm. At any rate, this group, this is in the early 70s, found each other and developed what we call was a civil rights movement. And I don't want to spend too much time on that, except to say that in what I was part of it. And what I noted was the artistic expressions of posters and signs and songs and sayings that were sung at demonstrations and protests. So that was the early 70s. They put out a newsletter called Madness Network News for many years until around in 1980s, when the federal government started noticing the power and impact that these people were making. And by this time, the movement was all over the country. They also now, by this time, had an emphasis on alternatives to treatment, which became the early drop-in centers. So in 1985, was the first alternatives conference. I wasn't there. I was there at the next one. And there were just sort of talent shows that were presented. And at one of these talent shows, and I think it was in West Virginia, somebody got up on stage and did a quote, drunk act. And she acted out her own sort of expression of being drunk. And I like had this aha movement. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is what our talent shows should be. So soon after, I took the position, if you want to call it that, of being an arts coordinator. I was not at all qualified, but nobody else was vying to be an arts coordinator at that time. They were very busy doing political movement kinds of things regarding involuntary treatment. There were different organizations. So again, fast forward, by this time we had talent shows that were performances that were very specific, that told people's stories, that were original, and also reflected the meanings of a particular what the conference let's see, I'm trying to say a word and I have trouble. But anyway, each conference had a different approach. And so the talent shows would also reflect that. We also had early in those days a MC, Howie the Harp. And New Yorkers know who Howie the Harp is, also Californians. To us, he was the MC of our talent shows, and he was just great. He was very personal. He greeted everybody with a joke or something or other, and he also raised his hand and said, "What am I doing?" His cane, and said, "What am I doing?" And the audience would shout back, "Raising Cane." Well, we really we began an organization in 1991, Howie the Harp being one of four people, myself, Sally Clay, and Diane Cote. And we came up with the name Altered States of the Arts. And Altered States of the Arts really has grown and developed and did a number of very important things. We had a journal that went out all over the country, that different places, different states would do one of our Altered States journals. We did performances not only at Alternatives and other places. We also had a website that Ed Pizicki did for many years until he died. The only thing we didn't do with Altered States was organize as an incorporated 501c3. So let's fast forward again to, I think it was 2020. You'll have to also let me know about timing, because I don't mean to run off, but I'll try to pack in as much as I can. Okay. So I was asked to do a curriculum. Of course, by this time I was kind of known, and there were people that were calling me the arts lady, and I had a persona, and I had a little act that I did called Henrietta. So in New York, there was an organization for developing a peer specialist curriculum, the Academy of Peer Specialists. And so I did an arts curriculum. And following that, which is now still part of their peer specialist curriculum, it's what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't an essential course that people had to take. So that I worked very hard on that for several years. It still exists. And Rita Cronice, who was one of the people that helped organize that particular project, we both came together and said the curriculum is only available to New Yorkers who are taking the peer specialist course. So all this valuable information we really couldn't spread out to other people. And we developed a website called Altered States of the Arts. And for several years, it's a very comprehensive. It has resources on it, it has the history of our movement. It has a lot of the things about the arts and a very impactful art exhibit. So I'm going to fast forward again, which is now. We have a website. It has a lot of things on it, a lot of resources people can take advantage of. And Rita and I attended most recently in the last year the Alliance Conference with Harvey Rosenthal. We had a workshop, and our main goal was to develop a committee to continue the work of the website and Altered States of the Arts and developing arts programs and projects. And out of that, we came out with a very powerful committee of people who attended and who, at this point, are regrouping and trying to reestablish an organization that is called Pure Arts for Change. I'm going to read you we are working right now on our mission statement. We're hoping to join and be part of the Alliance for Rights and Recovery organization, which is now a very, very large organization and national in nature. It used to be only for New Yorkers. So I'm going to read just what the original Who Are We was for Altered States of the Arts. We're now revising it. Who are we? Altered States of the Arts is a nationwide network of creative people with psychiatric histories or with disabilities, homelessness, living with AIDS, or physically challenged. Breaking away from traditional terms, we choose to call ourselves, quote, crazy folk, and that came from Howie the Harp. That was his term. We're not going to use that term now. But we have a lot of goals that we hope to achieve, and one of them is education for peers all over the country, education for peer specialists, webinars, talent shows. We're already developing a new website for Peer Artists for Change. We also we want to develop a guidebook for the arts for peer specialists, and on our website, we right now we have an art exhibit. We want to have an exhibit or a presentation of musicians, of poets, writers, dancers, all the different types of modalities of the arts. And that's pretty much who we are. This group represents a lot of very well-known peers from New York, but we also have peers from nationally, Meghan Caughey being one, Jean Campbell. There's some name recognitions from people that worked in our movement, even way back in the early days. Sybil Noble, Mike Skinner is a musician and has performed at the Alliance conferences for years. He's one of our coordinators. So each person has a role that they are doing in addition to creating this national organization. Rita has done an excellent job, Rita Cronise. I'm just always amazed because without her, I wouldn't be able to do any of this work. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to really move away from Altered States or Peer Artists for Change. as I don't think I look that old, but I am. I am just about 82, having trouble sometimes with words and having other kinds of problems. But I'm getting it started and really feeling rewarded that we have come this far, and here we are, still moving ahead with lots and lots of possibilities. Let me put a little plug in for myself for a book that I have just published called Toodles Tales, Tails. Um, and it's now available on Amazon for $12. I encourage you to buy one for your children, grandchildren, in my case, great grandchildren. I think Peter has the website information that will go up for this podcast. And I'm thanking again, I haven't yet, but I'm thanking for uh, Peter for doing this podcast. Never done one before. Also thanking Meghan. Um, if I could tell you about Meghan, it would take me another whole however many minutes I've had.
Oh, we're going to have
She's
Meghan tell us about.
amazing, talented artist
Yes.
and a great person.
We're going to have Meghan tell her story.
Okay. So thank you so much.
Gayle, I really appreciate the background, and we've heard Howie the Harp's name on this show before. Baltic Street into Action has supported the development of a peer arts component to their peer certification training there, and his legacy is one that we all honor. Meghan, I love a quote that you have at the top of your website, which is that art is the highest form of hope. Gerhard Richter. I want to start with that as a way of understanding how your work came about and how essential art has been in your life.
Sure. How long do we have, Peter?
Steve, what are we looking at now?
We're looking at about 10 minutes we have left.
10 minutes. Okay.
Okay, well, I will need to compress this quite a bit, but I've always made art all my life. When I was 19, I was away at school for the first time, and in an art history class, I started hearing voices and ended up being diagnosed with schizophrenia. And when I was an undergraduate, I actually got college credit for suicide prevention. But all through my life, I've made art, and it's helped me heal from what was diagnosed as schizoaffective disorder or schizophrenia. And at one point, I was in a very radical, awful treatment program where they did reparenting. They thought that schizophrenia was caused by faulty parenting, so they would reparent. Anyway, I ran away and was happy to find out that drawing paper came in big rolls. I didn't know it at that time, but I found this big roll of paper, so I started doing these drawings called the human beings. What I found out at one point when I was going to go to graduate school as an art therapist, I was taught this thing called free drawings, where you get behind a piece of paper, you sit in front of a piece of paper, but you don't think about what you're going to draw or paint. Your hand takes the oil pastel or whatever you have, and it in your unconscious just pours out. So when I learned that at Goddard College in Vermont, studying art therapy, it changed my life, because I stopped planning what I would draw, planning what I would paint, and just letting my unconscious billow forth. So this was very huge for me. And it's been, this has been years later, but this has been the way I've made art all along. And so it taps into emotion, it taps into cognition, especially emotion, is very expressionistic. And sometimes over my life, I've done peer services and led peer programs and things like that, and trained police and trained doctors. And um, you'd be surprised. I mean, doing training for a room full of police, and then one or two of them start to cry when they see your art because it touches something that they feel in their own humanness. Um, People don't know that police can cry when they see something that's emotional, but they do. And now I'm on the faculty of the medical school here in Oregon. And the term peers is kind of uh, problematic for me a little bit. I mean, I used it for a long time, but now my peers include the psychiatry residents of the training program for psychiatrists. And I I work with them based on my experience of schizophrenia and healing from that, but also using art. And what I hear from the doctors is that they're so glad to be doing something rather than just talking about something. And they're hungry for art. Also, nationally, there's a movement using called neuroaesthetics. Susan Magnuson of Johns Hopkins is a leader, and they're documenting now that making art, whether it be music or painting or drama or poetry or whatever, causes changes in the brain. They're documentable, and what a great thing if you're a health provider and you have a patient, you can say you might prescribe the medication, but that might have side effects. But if you have someone making art, that's probably not going to have side effects. So that's like a beautiful thing. And they find out that making art can cause the stress hormones to go down, the oxytocin, which is pleasure, to rise, all these wonderful things. And now all kinds of medicine is tapping into that. That's happening nationally. That's not just people with mental health issues. That's people with all kinds of problems like Parkinson's and whatever.
Mhm.
But it's just a wonderful thing. I'm worried that we're running out of time.
Well, Meghan, I think it's a fantastic arc to your life from having had, repeated hospitalizations to now being a professor working with psychiatric residents, working with policemen to help them understand and appreciate what the lived experience is like and how art not only provides a opportunity to express all of the inner experiences that are so hard to articulate, but come through in art production, but
Can I
also how
can I,
that affects their lives. Yes.
can I just say our
Mhm.
our country is starved for art right now with the political landscape. We are suffering, and art is a pathway to bring us together. We need to be connected with each other. We need to be expressing who we are and what our needs and what our thoughts and our goals are, and connecting with each other through art. That's a pathway that otherwise, we will be torn apart, but art can bring us together, and that's my greatest hope right there.
We don't know until we know. And as you're saying it, Megan, I'm thinking about the starving for art. And there are some around us. We listen to music but we don't feel that expression, that huge expression that comes from other people. And thank you for sharing how um, art has healed even, our police officers. And that's an eye opener. I,
No,
very strong.
Thank you.
The idea of art as a non-invasive, cost-effective path for a kind of holistic health process is something that I do think in our current environment is a message that is very powerful, and cuts across all political divides, all health strategies. I think the art for health and wellness movement across many areas of mental and physical health has a
Yes.
huge upside. And I'm so glad that two people who've lived their lives as a road to empowerment through the arts have this chance to make that message clear. It is a opportunity that I hope we can all take advantage of.
Absolutely. And even, from one side, Gail, sounds like you're a trailblazer and everything that we're talking about going back to the 70s where we didn't see this. Yeah, there was a lot of expression back then for sure, but we only just started to see how it helps heal. And certainly, Meghan, you as well, how important just fortifies how important the arts are. We are just about out of time.
I do want to give both of you a chance just to tell us your websites, spell it out because we don't have it scrolled on the screen. And again, a lot of this will be on podcast. So, Meghan, would you just spell out the website and
Yes, thank you.
please.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have two websites. One is for my memoir, which is Mudflower. The website is www.mudflowerbook.com.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the subtitle is Surviving Schizophrenia and Suicide Through Art, which is very relevant to this conversation. And my main website is MeghanCaughey.com. That's MEGHANCAUGHEY.com.
Good.
Thank you.
And Gail, did you want to just name your website so we can have that heard out loud?
Actually, I'm not sitting here looking at it,
Okay.
and because I thought you had it, but it is Peer Artists for Health,
Okay.
and Rita uses the number 4, but I doubt if that's how it is on the website. But I think that would Peer Artists for Health would.
I looked it up.
Yeah.
It came up fine with that.
Oh, good.
Beautiful.
And people can contact me through my email address, gailbluebird1943@gmail.com. And I think that's the best way to contact me.
Thank you. Thank you both so much for being here. I feel like there's much more to say, but so glad you were able to make it today.
Yeah. Appreciate everything today and all the insight. And again, going back to what seems like some of the beginnings of the realization how impactful art is. And by the way, got to share BalticStreetIntoAction.com is the website for that wonderful organization, and 501c3. It's a nonprofit. You can always use support and your insight. And again, all of you, thank you again for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve and
Thanks,
Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll be coming right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.